we need to show some grace to any actor, any artist at all, anybody who has any level of fame. We need to show them some grace and just let them have a little bit of privacy.
Hey there, welcome to Unboxing It, a podcast by Lara Wellman and me, Rowan Knox. Each week we tackle societal ideas and expectations that can stop us from leading full and authentic lives. We're so glad you're joining us. Let's get started.
Welcome to Unboxing It. I'm Lara.
And I'm Rowan.
And we are back for some more Heated Rivalry, which, as everyone who has been listening to the show since the beginning of 2026 knows, is something I'm all right with.
It's something I'm all right with too. I mean, I wasn't going to do 2 episodes on this, but I loved the show since you forced me to watch it.
Which you're not the only one. We won't say forced, we will say strongly encouraged to watch the show because I think it's great. So we did episode 1. It's one of our most listened to, most downloaded episodes ever. We clearly have some people who were just out there searching for Heated Rivalry content, and I am thrilled to have you here and hope that you continue to enjoy the takes that we have on our topics.
And like full disclosure, I have let Lara lead this entire thing. So I, once again, do not even know what these topics are that we're talking about today. I said, surprise me, just lay it on me and get my full unfiltered reaction to whatever it is we're talking about today.
Yes. So one of the things that I think I heard most from the first episode we did of Heated Rivalry content was that I announced that I had 8 points I wanted to cover during our chat, and we got through 3, and people are like, what are the other 5? So you get to hear more of those 5 today, and we'll see how many we can cover this time.
I'm hoping for all 5, but I don't think we're going to get there. I have a feeling that we're going to have lots to talk about. So, at worst, we do a 3rd episode. I'm all right with that.
Yeah, and a lot of these topics, as we did in the first one, we're using Heated Rivalry as a point of context to talk about topics that I think were important to talk about, but then that becomes a little bit more than a conversation just about the show, right? This isn't just let's pick apart this show or this book. These are topics that come up, and I'm so glad they came up, and this is why, and this is maybe how they did it, but this is why we need to keep talking about that topic because I think it's important. So yeah, we may or may not get through them all. I also know we've gotten feedback from people. They are like, hey, talk more about queer joy, talk more about so many different parts we talked about last time. We could go deeper, so who knows what the future will bring. This is not a Heated Rivalry podcast. But if it's my special interest this year, it's going to come up a lot.
And boy, has it come up a lot.
Listen, I try not to make it be all I talk about, but it's relevant. It is relevant to what we do here. So let's just bring the things I love together.
Perfect. Let's do it.
So the next point on my list was about consent. In this show, they do such a beautiful job of modeling consent. So it's not like this conversation where it's like, consent is important. Do you give consent? Sign on this line. But I think especially as people who grew up in the 90s, consent was not something we talked about. In fact, I feel like the way that I was taught to deal with relationships was to expect to have my feelings not always taken into consideration, to expect people to try to maybe bulldoze over my consent, and to try to figure out how to make sure that I knew how to set boundaries and say no. And it was my job to know to say no loudly versus the conversations around consent that have come up since then, where we talk about the fact that we have the right to say no to anything that is happening to our bodies. And I think that we need to talk about that more. And in the show, Ilya in particular is very good at consistently asking for consent. Like, is this okay? Do you want to do this? Do you like this? Right? They're not like these heavy questions. It's just these little check-ins to make sure that moving forward makes sense. And I think modeling that is not something I've seen very much. And if we can model that and have everybody take that into consideration in life, it's just going to be better for people.
I think a lot when we talk about consent of that picture from the end of World War II. And we all know this picture where there is a soldier who's leaning a woman over and kissing her. And a lot of stories were created around that photo. But my understanding, and I've yet to fact check this, so take this with a grain of salt, but my understanding is that they did not know each other. That he basically just grabbed her and kissed her, and a photo was taken. And this became iconic. And for women, especially, and those of us like me, a trans man who were socialized as girls and women as we were growing up, this was sort of expected that if a man liked you, he would eventually just lean over and kiss you and touch you. And yeah, it was your responsibility to tell him no. He would keep going until you tell him no. And you had to be very clear about that no. And I, first of all, love this new model of asking people if they would like to be kissed. I really don't like when older people, and I say older people like me, I really don't like when older people go, that's not sexy. It can't possibly be sexy. And so I applaud Heated Rivalry for having these very erotic, very sexy scenes where consent is a part of it because you are brought right into that scene. It is hot, it is heavy, and consent just in some way just makes it even hotter. Like it is fantastic how it's done. I also like that it's between two men. I
Mhm.
like that consent is practiced between two men because a lot of times when we see stories about consent, whether it is asked for and received or not, it is around a straight couple. It'll be a man and a woman, and the man is asking for consent or should be asking for consent, or the woman is pushing him away because he did not have consent. And so this was very cool to see this modeled. I really hope that it changes the conversation around it.
Yeah. And in the second sexual scene, there is a section where, again, Ilya asks for something. Shane isn't comfortable, basically says, not this time. And the response is, okay, next time. Right? So it was a very good demonstration of asking, getting an answer, and accepting the answer and moving on. And again, that's what we need to model. It's okay to say no. That doesn't mean everything is terrible and now the moment is lost. It just means maybe whatever that thing was, we're not going to do it today. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we're not going to do it today. Maybe we're not going to do it ever. Everybody likes different things. It is such a, I want to use the term wholesome because I think in that moment, even though these, again, these are sex scenes and they're pretty graphic sex scenes, even in those moments, there's this pureness, this real sweetness around consent. Like, it's like, I'm really into you. I really want you, but I really want to check in and make sure you're okay with it. And I don't know, it just made me really happy as someone who grew up in the 80s and the 90s where this was just not a thing. We're really seeing it now. I mean, obviously, we knew things like rape were a thing. We absolutely knew that was wrong, although there were some blurred lines around that too.
Yeah.
But seeing that, I don't know, I just think the youth are okay. The youth are going to be okay. It gives me a lot of hope for the future.
Yeah. And I think that something I did with my kids that I think I'm hoping will change some of the conversation. And I remember some of the feedback about something as small as this, which I'll tell you what it is in a minute, was like, it's not such a big deal. Why are you making it a big deal? But I think, again, it's knowing that you don't have to accept something that doesn't feel good to you. So for me, tickling was a big thing, right? So when I was little,
Mm.
there was the whole somebody would tickle you till you were basically begging for mercy and hoped that begging for mercy would mean that they stopped,
Yep.
which probably it would, but also maybe it wouldn't because it was really funny to them. And so, ha ha ha. But to me, and I always said this to my kids, if you don't want something, say, I do not consent. You know, I've heard kids roughhousing in my house and been like, say, I do not consent. And then I'm just like reinforcing it all the time. I do not consent. And I'll come in and back you up till the end of the world. If you say, I do not want that, that's it, we're done. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Even if you're playing, even if you're joking, even if whatever. If they say, I do not want that, we do not do it. And I just don't think, back to the tickling example, no, stop, is definitely things people said about being tickled, but you had to do this whole like, I'm begging for mercy for you to stop. I don't know if you experienced this as much, but it's certainly something I had. And it would be like grandparents, or like it wasn't just anybody, like it was really just how I remember people being. Like they will tickle you till you throw up unless you beg them to stop.
Yeah, that did happen to me as well. It was very common. And the other thing that was common that we're now changing the conversation around is things like, oh, go give your aunt a kiss. She wants a kiss. Go give your grandpa a hug. He wants a hug. No, no, go hug. You're going to make him sad. Go hug your grandpa. Like, when you really think about that, what message is that sending? That somebody else has more control over your body and what you do with it than you do. Like, it sets a very dangerous precedent that this adult can have what they want from me because they want it. And so I was never like that with my children. I always said, like, do you want to go give your cousin a hug? Oh, no? Okay. Do you want to wave goodbye then? All
Yep.
right. Okay, let's wave goodbye. There's always that when I meet little kids in my coffee shop and we share a moment, like maybe I show them where the books are, or like I'm walking them around. We have a little fairy door in there and I show them the fairy, whatever, whatever it is, we have a nice little connection. At the end, I say, like, it was really nice to meet you. Do you like to give high fives? Can I have a high five? And if they shake their heads, no, I'm like, that's okay. Thank you so much for coming in, right? They need to learn they have control over their own bodies. They can make that decision. It is really creepy to me when I think about making young people give hugs, making young people give or accept kisses, making young people sit on someone's lap when they don't want to, right? There's a lot of stuff that we have done that has perpetuated this anti-consent model, and from a very young age it sends all the wrong messages. So yeah, it is really nice to see that not only are we modeling consent in a lot of shows and movies now, but the world is so anti-LGBT. A lot of the world is right now. And where are we seeing these really healthy relationships? We're watching it on Heated Rivalry. We're watching these two people ask and receive and choosing not to give consent whenever they don't feel comfortable. So not only are we seeing queer joy, we're seeing healthy relationship models.
Yeah. And there's one other section that I wanted to take note of, which is there's a part where, again, Ilya asks Shane, have you ever done this? And Shane hadn't. And Ilya says, you're scared. And Shane gets very defensive, right? Like, I'm not scared. And he says, no, it's okay. Right. And again, that's part of a really good conversation. Just because somebody said something, just because you're scared, whether or not that means you're not going to do it, whether or not it means you are going to do it, whether or not it just means more of a conversation. It's a conversation. It's okay for you to feel how you feel. That's not a problem. I hear you. I see you. Let's figure out what comes next. Not, come on.
Yeah, yeah. I was in those situations sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I chose not to give consent to take things further. And in those situations, it was with men, with boys at the time, like
Yeah.
teenage boys, because we were young. And they would take it so personally, right? Like, oh, what? Like, we just had such a nice day. Like, I was really into you,
Mm,
or whatever it might be, right? And we need to teach everyone, but especially our sons, not to behave that way. I think that's getting better too. But when you see Ilya just really accept that it is all right, that Shane doesn't want to do something, and dig deeper about what his fears might be, it's beautiful. It's
mhm,
beautiful, and especially contrasted with his very rough exterior. He's a little gruff. He's very direct, trying to find the right words for it. But, he's stoic. He
mhm.
doesn't show a lot of emotion for a lot of the show. And so to see those gentler moments, I think models a healthy masculinity.
I agree. Which leads me to my next point around the actors. So, Connor Story and Hudson Williams are the actors who play Ilya and Shane. And I think that this is not about the show, but it is about the show, that these two men are really good examples of healthy masculinity. Like they are comfortable being friends and still being affectionate with each other. They are just examples of men that are not what we've often seen. And I think that they're emotionally open, they're physically open, and teaching men, teaching people that that's okay is another nice example. It's another good modeling that is out there. And I have found that to be very interesting to watch. I know not everybody who watches the show watches all the edits and the extra interviews and so on, but I have. And it's been amazing to watch. I really find it fascinating, including that they are setting really strong boundaries based on their fame and saying, this is what I'm okay with, and this is what I'm not okay with, and this is how I'm going to deal with it. And they're not being aggressive in any way, but they are being themselves and not changing who they are and taking care of themselves.
So, to your first point, in case you've never heard us before and do not know what I do for a living, I currently own a coffee shop and I'm there all day, every day, most days. It's in the heart of the gay village, the queer village here in Toronto. And so a lot of queer people come in. And what I love, one of the things that I love is that when two men or male presenting people come in, I often can't tell if they are a couple or if they're friends.
Hmm.
Because a lot of queer men and queer masculine people just show affection to each other without all those toxic masculinity behaviors where, like, you can't reach over and hold his hand if he's going through something. You can't like rub his shoulder or his arm if like, there's a warmth to the relationship. And so it's none of my business what the relationship is, but I just sometimes they share with me how they know each other. Sometimes they're friends, sometimes they're partners. It's various things, but it's lovely. It's lovely. And yeah, and seeing that in the interviews between the two actors, I can guarantee I have not watched as many as you have, Lara,
No.
but it is really nice to see. And as for the boundary setting, somebody gave me advice really early on when I was first starting to appear in media, when I was first writing a book, when a lot of eyes were on me and my family. And they said, you are in control of your own story. You get to tell as much or as little of it as you'd like. That's your story, your narrative. And I've held on to that the entire time. So sometimes people will come in, to the shop or just run into me on the street or come to an event that I'm at or whatever, and they'll say, I feel like I know you. I get that a lot, actually. I feel like I know you is something that most people will say, honestly. I say like 75% of the people that meet me for the first time, because I do share a lot of things about myself. But there are things I don't share at all. that are very private to me, that are private to my family, that are sacred, that I hold on to. So they do know parts of me. That's true. And who I am is very present in what I bring to the table. I would say I'm a pretty authentic person. But I love that more and more celebrities, people far more famous than I am. Like I'm like maybe at best a micro celeb, right? Like people who have worldwide fame are doing so without giving away the parts of themselves that they don't want to for the sake of fame, for getting an article published that wouldn't get published if they didn't reveal this about themselves or that about themselves. They're just like, no, I'm not doing that. And they're putting their job first. I'm an actor. You can know a little bit about me, but you're not going to know everything about me because I need to have a private life. I need to have boundaries. So it goes back to the whole consent thing again, right? It's all about those boundaries and about choosing what it is that you want to bring forward and what it is you want to keep to yourself, whether it is your body, information about yourself, whatever. So again, I can't imagine rocketing to fame at a young age the way these two actors have,
Mm.
just from being not very well known, still working other jobs, working actors, very much like working other things, and going from that to being two of the most famous people in the world. And I think they're handling it, at least from the outside, very well.
Yeah. And I think it used to be that the expectation was famous people couldn't have privacy. I know Chapel Rowan is a good example of somebody who was like, I am not okay with how some of the fans are behaving with me. And a lot of people were like, why are you so ungrateful? And I think that it's so important to understand these are human beings. They do not need to give you anything. You are not entitled to anything. And I don't think the folks listening to this podcast are probably thinking they are, but I just think, again, it's another good reminder that people get to decide what they're okay with. And we accept what they decide, even if we don't always love it. Connor's story has pretty much taken off his social media presence. So unless it is some kind of a brand deal or an official announcement, he's not doing it anymore. Do I wish he was still putting out what he was putting out before? Yeah, it would be fun to watch. But that's not up to me. End of story.
Yeah, he has to preserve his well-being in all of
Yeah.
this. We have seen what happens when celebrities get overwhelmed with the expectations that are placed upon them. And we've lost a lot of people quite young who had a very difficult time handling that. And I don't mean handling going to work as an actor or singing or performing in some way. I mean all of the other things, having not a lick of privacy, having everything about your life tracked, having people obsessed with you. And I've always wondered why we do that, right? Because I can really deeply appreciate somebody's work, somebody's talent, somebody's music, somebody's acting skills. And I can just leave it there. I've always been able to just leave it there and go, yeah, I really like that. But without naming anybody, we had a very famous person come into the shop recently. Very, very, very famous. And we acted like we didn't even know this person. And we just served them their food. And they sat down and they did their thing for a little bit all by themselves. And every single other person in our shop left them alone too, by the way. And I think they had a really nice time because they came back the next day and did it again.
Mm-hmm.
And then they left. Right. And I will never disclose who that person was. And I would never, even if they came in, ask them for a selfie or anything else. I love that they chose this space to come in. And I love that they were able to feel safe for a little while and away from whatever it was that they were doing and leave. I think that's amazing. Like everyone deserves that. Celebrities get very, very, very little of it.
Yeah. And it's the whole parasocial relationship, which can mean that people feel entitled. It can also be things like, oh, I'm worrying about them. because like this is so much for them to take on. But then again, it's not like I don't know them. It is not my responsibility to go out there and try to protect them. Like I think people take on these relationships that don't exist, and it starts to feel like a relationship that does exist, and that's dangerous. And that's why there are some very famous people, like you said, who are no longer with us. We've seen it with some of the boy bands, with people who've fallen into addiction and not made it, right? Like there has been a death in the last couple of years that was a really big one. And I think that part of that is not being able to handle the fame, not being able to handle the pressure, not being able to handle people giving you drugs and the party culture, and not being able to handle all of it until life just isn't like, just being rich and famous is not a great life if all these other things are pressuring you and making you feel like crap, and you're constantly being tempted by things. Like it's a lot.
I had my own very small version of that where I got well known in my specific field for the specific work I do. And everyone wanted to talk to me. And I had hundreds of thousands of followers across social media platforms. And I was booked solid for speaking engagements. I had a #1 best-selling book. And I was like, okay, yeah, I made it. Look at me, I did it. Wow. And I felt so empty because everyone tells you that that is what success should be. Society teaches you that if you get to this level of whatever it is, success, stardom, etc., it will somehow fix what's inside of you, right? But I wasn't content enough in where I was with myself. And so you start to realize that in that space, everybody just wants something from you. And you can't trust anyone because some people are genuinely great and some people just want to use you. It is a very lonely place to be. So I think, from my very limited standpoint on that, that we need to show some grace to any actor, any artist at all, anybody who has any level of fame. We need to show them some grace and just let them have a little bit of privacy. Now, I say this, and some people who make the trip in to Understory to say hi to me are going to be like, oh, Rowan doesn't want to talk to me. No, no, no. I love that. Though if I didn't love that, I wouldn't have a coffee shop where you can just come in and talk to me.
Yeah.
That's totally different. And sometimes people want a picture, and that's cool too. Look, I think that's lovely, but I'm talking about the people who were in a TV show or a movie or something and never get a moment's peace. They can't go to the grocery store. They can't go have dinner. They can't go to the park with their dog or their kid. They just never get a moment. That's different. I do think that just remembering the humanity in absolutely everyone. I say this all the time. I'm going to say it until people are sick of it. Remembering the humanity in everyone is crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We'll do at least one more. So I've talked about representation. In the first episode, we talked about the representation that I saw of like good humans, right? And we had a few examples with the parents and the allies. But the other one that I really thought, or the other ones that I thought were really good in this show is, and some of them are named and some of them are not named. So for example, Ilya is bisexual, and I think bisexual representation is important, and we can dig further into that. Shane is autistic. This never comes up in the show, but if you're watching and you think, wow, some of these quirks seem a bit spectrumy, it has been confirmed by the author, and Hudson played it that way. Jacob Tierney agreed with it. Like, it was absolutely a decision that they accepted and played into it. Shane is on the spectrum. And there's also one of the actors who is trans in the show. So these are, again, more representations I think are important. Like, the more we see it, the more we see somebody who has some of these traits that we might have thought of as kind of quirky, but we normalize it. So the autism stuff, I think it's good. I think talking about bisexuality, because there's a lot of people who feel like bisexuality isn't a thing, right? So either if it's a man who says they're bisexual, they're secretly actually gay. Or if it's a woman saying they're bisexual, it's actually just like a phase, right? Like people really like to pretend it's not possible for somebody to be bisexual. And the more we talk about it and the more people are like, no, I am bi, I think it's a good thing. So those were a few of the examples that I thought were really good to see there again.
Well, bi representation. Hello, I'm bisexual. So there we go. More of that for everyone. I loved that they didn't discuss Ilya's sexuality until a lot later in the show. I can't remember exactly when it was, but it just came up in a conversation and he mentions it and that's it. And then it just in relation to Shane's sexuality, and then it's kind of done.
It's interesting because in the books, Ilya is in all of the books. And there are times where he'll meet somebody and they're like, oh, I'm bisexual. He's bisexual. Me too, right? I'm so happy. Other people are talking about this. It's a thing, right? Look at me. I am telling you I am bi. And it's not like he's super open about it, but it comes up and you can see there's almost like a feeling in it like, I don't get to see this very much because people don't talk about being bi. Yay. Good for you for saying it. Like there's that comes up in some of the other books. So I know that's not in the show, but it does come up in the books, which I think is good.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. One of the things that has frustrated me more recently is every Pride season, I see discourse on the internet about, no straights at Pride,
Mm.
no straight couples at Pride. I'm like, first of all, everyone should be able to come to Pride. Also, you have straight couples, first of all, that are, say, a trans man and a trans woman. What? They shouldn't be at Pride? Or you'll have a seemingly straight couple walking down the street, but they're both bisexual, or one of them is bi or pan, and they just happen to be together. It just happens to be a hetero relationship. I think bi erasure is very painful to a lot of bisexual people. It's mocked even within the community sometimes. It is still seen even within the community sometimes as being less than, or someone who just hasn't fully come out yet, someone who is just, yeah, was just going through a phase, just having a little fun before they settle down in the burbs and have a bunch of kids. And it's ugly, right? It's like when we already have so much hate lobbed at us, it doesn't need to be coming from inside the house. So I'm glad that there was bi representation. I'm glad that they played it well. I'm glad to see that autism was represented. I think that's really nice in the sense that it wasn't a whole story arc that he's autistic. It's just part of who he is. And Harrison Brown, who is the trans man, Harrison and I go back a little bit. We did a talk together a year or two ago, and that's where I met him for the first time. But Harrison is fantastic. And I just love that he was just like another hockey player. Like they just decided, like, we're gonna put a trans dude as a hockey player. That's amazing. And I actually didn't know until I watched the show and I was like, hey, I know this person. Oh, that's so fun, right? And those subtle inclusions where it's like there just happens to be another guy in the locker room, right? It's just another hockey players having these conversations. Those subtle acts of inclusion are just as important as the more overt acts of inclusion. Those subtle acts of, I think, just noticing that somebody is maybe behaving in a way that is more neurodivergent, but it's not overtly spoken of. Just, I think, allows for more acceptance of neurodivergent. I don't want to say behaviors. I think that might not be the right word, but like things that happen, like maybe some of the extra overwhelm, whatever is going on. It creates more acceptance in society in general. And I think it's great. I think they did such a good job.
Yeah. One of the examples in the very first episode that you see a quirk is when Shane folds his clothes as he's getting undressed. So he's getting undressed and he like folds his pants and puts them down and folds his shirt and puts it down instead of just like getting undressed. And the response from Ilya is to like grin and like That's a funny little quirk you've got, but not in a like, what are you doing? Like, oh, that's a funny thing that you're doing. It's cute and I love it. Like, it's the
Yeah.
response that it feels like you get. And yeah, it's just being very much, these are my safe foods. I don't eat this. I do this. There's some like rigidity around food. And again, it's just like a little bit in there. And I think having that representation in all three of those examples I gave you without it being overt is important. It's just normal.
Yeah, it's a spectrum too, right?
Mhm.
Like, I have a child who is autistic, and I did the same test myself that the psychologist gave my child, and I scored definitely way too low to be autistic. But there were some things about me that were higher up, food texture being one of them. Food textures are so bad for me, some of them. Like, don't even get me started on mushrooms or noise because of my synesthesia. So, really noisy environments can be very exhausting for me. So, things like that. And yeah, so it creates this acceptance for everybody who is a little neurodivergent. I'm making lots of smiley faces right now because it just really became a show about inclusion in so many more ways than these two hockey rivals who happen to be into each other.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's just one last one that I think we'll cover because it kind of associates with that. It's the validating of feelings, right? So we talked about that a little bit already, but there's, like a couple crash outs, right? So in the very last episode, again, I mean, we've talked about the fact that there are some spoilers as we're talking, but in the very last episode, there's a scene where Shane is crashing out, like, oh my God, this is my nightmare. This is the scariest thing I've ever dealt with. And apparently, when that scene was being filmed, Hudson, who plays Shane, played it in a way that Jacob Tierney, who's the director, was like, oh, that's a bit much. Like, you seem to be going over the top with this, but I'm going to let you like get through it and whatnot. And then later, when it was being edited, people were like, this is really good, right? This is how some people will crash out. Maybe not everybody would crash out in such a like, this is the end of the world kind of way, but some will. So, number one, yeah, like that is a way some people react. So, we've seen that, right? Like a big crash out. But then the response is like, yeah, this is scary. So, there's a line I love because Shane says, I'm so scared. And Ilya says, yes, it's scary, but you're brave. And Shane says, shut up. First of all, the shut up was so relatable to me because if somebody told me I was brave, I would be like, shut up. Don't try to make me feel better. Don't tell me I'm brave. That is not helpful. But Ilya's like, no, you're brave, and just hugs him. And that is a way to just support somebody, validate them, and help them regulate their emotions in a time when they're not able to do it themselves. And it was just another good modeling. It's not the only time it happens, but it's like, hey, you're freaking out. It's okay. I'm here. You're not alone. Feel my energy bringing you back down. We're okay here. And I really loved to see that.
This warms my Gen X heart because a lot of us were basically just taught to stuff our feelings down,
Mm-hmm.
that we need to suck it up. How many times were you told to suck it up? Because I was told a ton.
Yeah, suck it up, or just, it's not a big deal, right? It's the whole, you're okay, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Like, you're fine. Versus, you're scared, and that's okay. And we can get through it, and we will be all right. But not because I'm telling you you shouldn't be scared, but because I'm telling you it's okay that you're scared.
Yeah, one is very much about like, don't cry, don't cry, don't freak out, don't do that. And the other is, yes, of course you're going to cry right now. Of course you're freaking out right now. That's understandable. And we're going to get through it. It's the behavior, the support that we see between these two characters is really, I think I've used the term lovely like 50 times in this recording, but it is lovely. Lovely is the right term. Beautiful. It's healing in a way to see, again, not only queer representation to that level, but queer representation that is healthy. It's great.
Yeah. And, acknowledging the fact that it wasn't always healthy. These folks had a 9-year situationship with a lot of miscommunication. But
Yep.
seeing some of that turn around, seeing some of these examples of how you can deal with things in a really great way, I think it was different, right? Like, I just think what I liked about this show is that it was real kinds of scenarios I've encountered. Maybe I wasn't in exactly that encountered, but I've been scared. I've been angry when somebody tried to make me feel better. I've been really grateful of somebody supporting me. Like, all of these things are true things that happen. And people are complicated. And people have feelings that they're allowed to have. And all of that just being represented, I think was really great.
It was really great.
So we've mostly covered. There's a couple more points that we haven't covered. One of them is around hockey culture, which I don't really feel like I have a lot to say anyway, but I do think it was good that it was covered. I think that if somebody else was going to have a conversation to talk about that more in depth, it would be great. I just think that that was one of them. But mostly we've covered my points, and I think I could talk about this forever, as everybody now gets. But I think it's in that sphere of, I love that we can have these conversations. It's not just a heated rivalry. Let's pick it apart for the sake of a fandom. But I think that there were some really good topics in there. So I hope people enjoyed this conversation. If there's more people want to talk about, let us know. I think, again, it's not a podcast about heated rivalries, so we're not going to talk about it in every episode. But there is room to keep talking about stuff. And if anybody, like the author or the director or any of the actors, wants to come on our show, please let us know, because you are invited.
Yeah, and if you come to my coffee shop, I'll just act like I don't know you.
Unless you say that you want to be acknowledged. So just make sure you say hi.
Yeah, give consent. If you give consent, we'll take a selfie and I'll tell you that I adore you and that Lara's hopping in the car and driving here right now. Can you please hang out for 5 hours? But
yeah, I'll be right there.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Truly, this has been great. And I am very much looking forward to our next episode, which will not be about heated rivalry, but I'm sure this is going to come back up.
Yeah, because there's going to be a season 2.
I have heard rumors that they might film parts of season 2 right around where I work.
And they might film some of season 2 in Ottawa.
Ooh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I know someone who's going to be scouting out locations. It's not me. I'm too busy serving coffee.
Maybe. I also don't like to leave my house a ton, so it may just be that I still look at it online. But again, if anybody's listening and you need a 50-year-old lady who is an ally as an extra, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you. And please do come and give us your feedback on our Substack. We want to hear what you think. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you for listening to Unboxing It. We're so glad you did. If you like what you heard and you want to help us keep making episodes, please leave us a rating wherever you heard this one. You can also subscribe to the Unboxing It Substack to get access to all of the latest news and some special bonus content. And hey, truly, don't forget to find some moments of joy today. You deserve them. Take care out there, and we'll see you next time.